So let's go.
And you're right on the West Coast, aren't you? So
Yes. Yeah, I'm in California. So it's noon.
Noon. Okay.
Yeah. Lunchtime.
I always forget how this works. How does this work? Chat. There it is. There we go.
Welcome, everybody.
So we've got.
Hi.
Okay, have you got the list, Pete? Can you see it?
Yeah, if you click on, so you've got panelists, you click on it.
I know, I've got it on there.
Oh, you're there already. Yeah, no, I've got it. I've got it. Yeah, good to see some familiar names.
Do you think we're just benefiting from the lockdown that no one's got anything else to do?
Yeah. I can't believe you watched everything on Netflix. You know, there is as well, you know. No, it's great to have you here. So we'll crack on. Just Paul will be joining shortly. Yeah, no worries, Nick. You know what I've got for you?
Have you got a haiku for us?
Well, I've got a joke about a haiku.
No. That.
Oh, hang on a second.
He's left his haiku somewhere else.
Hang on.
Kirsten's wondering, what on earth have I signed up for?
He forgot his notes.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. It's just that it came up saying that my earpiece was going on. Do you want to explain what this is about first, for the benefit of anyone that just thinks I'm completely raising?
For the benefit of anyone who's not seen any of these before, and this will continue until he delivers. On the first webinar of these we did, Pete promised at the end to come back to the second webinar with a haiku. I can't remember what about, but he was going to come back with a haiku. And to date, he has failed every time. So we can only wait.
Not. Come on, you know how to respond to a not joke.
Who's there?
Haiku.
Haiku who?
Hi, could you help me write a haiku?
That's horrendous.
Right, now listen. Together we come to create with Macanta unique CRM. That's your haiku, man.
Shall we carry on with something rather
I was expecting a bit more than that. That took me 3 weeks to write that.
I think you should try harder.
So we do have a wonderful guest with us this afternoon.
Oh, we've got Nick has offered to do the next haiku.
No. I've spoken with Nick on a Zoom call. We are not letting Nick do a haiku. Not if you want to have any attendees on the call afterwards. No, we'll hold you to that, Nick. So, yeah, we've got a wonderful guest with us this afternoon, depending which part of the world you are in. Kirsten Baker from Mindshare Collaborative. She's on the other side of the world, on the west coast of America. We'll find out a bit more about her business in a few minutes. But I was going to say, as always, but as we started last week, and as we will do always in future, Peter de Villiers, what's been going on in the world of Macanta? What have we released to the world over the last 7 days?
Bits and pieces. So let me share my screen. Now I need to move some things around. So there's a couple of really big things in the pipeline, which will hopefully, will be here for next week. But, I've broken it. Yeah.
Oh, don't break it.
Yeah. So, but what we have is a couple of productivity things, more interface based than big features. So some of you may be familiar that when you log in, this is the screen you see, and then you have save searches in the drop down here. And when you go to a contact, so we can go and look for me, that loads up and takes you through to the contact. And the next time you want to find someone on a saved search, you've got to go back to that home page. I can move this, and it soon will play along. But now you don't need to do that anymore, because we've moved that whole pane to the top right-hand side here. So if I go over back to this app here, I can then go in here. I can either do my searches right here without going back to the search page, or I've got these here and I can go in and it'll bring the details up in a modal. I've got inline editing. I can change whatever I need to. I can then just close it and I'm back to the contact where I was. There's no need to go back to a search page or anything like that. So a bit of improved productivity for you there. And you can also easily, just by clicking here, bring up whatever the last search is, save search that you looked at. And then we've got another thing where, I'm looking for a good example of how to show this. But what we've got, let's say I'm here, and with data objects especially, what used to happen, as soon as you scroll down to see what's on the second half of the page, you lose track of which contact am I looking at, the section in the top left, whereas now what we've done is when you move up, as soon as that disappears, that bar comes up that just reminds you of name, email, and phone, so that even if you're at the bottom of the page in the depths of things, you know which contact you're looking at, and when you scroll back, that is gone. And the last piece is actually in a connector where we build the data objects, where what we've added is, you may be familiar that we've got these sections that we can put fields in. And last week, or up until earlier today, the only way to know what section a field is in when you're busy building it is by opening it up. But what we've added is that you can see the list and you can see we've added in which section it is. So you can clearly see which fields are grouped together in which sections. So no major changes, but makes a big change to productivity, and hopefully you find that useful.
Yeah, one of our core values at Macanta is evolve. And how that displays itself in the product is we have a commitment that that Macanta will be better tomorrow than it is today. And one of the reasons we moved this kind of little update section into the webinar is as much about holding us accountable to ensure that every week we are reporting on the evolution of Macanta. I'm far more as an observer than Peter is. Peter is in the product, building stuff out with the development team, and you know, when I see some of the stuff they come up with, I'm just thinking, wow, I'm so glad I'm working with guys that are smarter than me. Great, thanks for that, Peter. So I don't know if you want to unmute Kirsten. I think she's muted herself. You do that, great. Yeah. So. As you know, these case study webinars are all about building out a Macanta CRM system for a real business. And the real business we have with us today is Mindshare Collaborative. The representative is Kirsten Baker. She's the Director of Operations. Welcome, Kirsten, to this madhouse. You've been sitting there like a deer rabbit in the headlights. Thinking, oh my God, what am I doing here? So who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for? And why are you here? Just kind of tell about that for a minute or two.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know I was supposed to prepare a haiku, so no haiku came with me. Sorry about that. But yeah, I'm Kirsten Baker. I work for a company called Mindshare Collaborative, And we support health and wellness entrepreneurs build their brand and outside of a physical four walls of the practice. So a doctor, a health coach, a nutritionist, those types of people can only see so many clients or patients within a 40-hour work week. And most of the people within our community have developed some kind of protocol or revolutionary way to treat a fairly common thing. So whether that's like hypothyroidism, they figured out a way to treat that in diet and exercise or different methodology, but you can only see, call it 10, 20, 30 patients a week due to time constraints. So how do they turn that into a book, a podcast, a course, things like that to get their message out to more people? So we partner with them and provide them with coaching that goes along with that. So one of the things that we do is we have coaching calls. And so they get on the line with our founder, our CEO, some of our mentors, and work through various issues that they have right now in their business. And in order to prepare for those calls, you kind of got to know a little bit about what's going on in their business, a little bit about kind of what they need help with, so that the 30 minutes they're on the line is really 30 minutes of actionable data, not 30 minutes of catch up. Yeah. So right now we have a very manual system of fill out a type form, then someone on my team spends time and formats it all pretty in a Google Doc and gets that to the coach ahead of time. And so we've been looking for quite a few years actually in how to make this more of a seamless process. So giving our members access within our membership portal to fill out their pre-call notes, and then have one spot where that all automatically populates over, and our coaches can just log in, look up that person, see all that data, be able to prep, be able to include their notes and that type of thing on the backside. And so we run Infusionsoft as our CRM, and you just have limited fields and you run out quickly in all those custom fields. So that's where the Macanta research started. And that's my monologue for the moment. I'll stop there.
That's brilliant.
Okay.
Peter, do you want to take that and run with it?
Yeah, we can do that. So we had a chat and you sent me over some details on what you need in the system from fields perspective, relationships and the like. So what I've done is I've sort of built some of it in advance, some of it we can continue, and then we can potentially look at, well, how do we integrate with the form that you talked about, that so that the client can fill in the details in advance, and it just appears so that when the coach comes to look at it before the call, it's all there and they can carry on from there. So relationship wise, you sent over the names of who the coaches are. Mm-hmm. And you'll see once we get into the weeds of this a bit, they will just be contacts. They will have the relationship of coach to a particular call perhaps, but they won't, then the relationship won't be their individual names. The same way that, do you call them clients or members or?
Members usually.
Yeah. Okay. So I can change clients to members. We can see how easy it is to do that. And then the member will have a relationship of member to each of the notes for their individual calls and as they go. So what we've got so far is just the basic structure. I've made some assumptions about subgroups for the different fields that you have. So I've just gone by the fields that you had, where you've got first call as a yes, no, you've got some text. Some of these are just number fields. You've got a recording link, and then you've got your ratings and ideal outcome, all of those pieces there. So
just to clarify, every call will be a separate coaching call data object.
Yeah, well, item, not object. So yes, so what will happen is, let's go and fill one in with some dummy information just so that you can see. And this, of course, you'll have the option that someone can fill it in here, or they fill in the form and submit it, and it then creates it here. And am I right in thinking that the coach then fills in a lot of this information, so that the more ideal outcome and stuff, or action items, or is it all done by the member?
The items that the coach would fill out would be the action items and the call notes. That's it. Okay. So they would do that ideally live while they're on the phone with the member. My team would provide the call recording link after the fact. We'd go in and put that in. And the connection details are already determined, so we can either pre-populate those. But basically, your first 2 columns would be filled out by the member. The third column would be filled out by our staff in some capacity, either the coach or admin.
Cool.
So good guessing on my part. So let's say that's the first there. Then I'm just, for the sake of it, I'm just going to take the titles and put that in. So I'll have a couple. I won't do all of them. Let's say 35, 56 because I'm that accurate. And you have your drop downs. Now, at the moment, I've not made any of these compulsory fields, but you can have that. But if it's going to come in via a web form integration, then that really doesn't play into it anymore. But if there's information that you must have before the next call can be booked or anything, then you can do that so that we make sure they don't save the end of the call without having that information in place. So I'll just leave that there for the moment. So then we can go in, and I'm going to be the client in this instance, and we can go and save that. And now you'll see here at the top, we've got that call, action items, call recording, first call. We can change what's in that heading for that, and we can go and look at how we do those as well. But then just to point out what Pete mentioned earlier is that this one's not, and a couple of fields there, and then I'm the client again. And do your members always speak to the same coach?
No.
Okay.
That'd be too easy.
But now you can see there are 2 calls here, the history for 2 calls. One was the first call, everything subsequently won't be, but you don't lose any information. You can always see historical calls. So that will then stay on the member's record, and you can go and see those at any point in the future. You can go back to a previous call if you need to do that. So,
and are these sorted? Are these sorted just based off the date they were submitted initially, or are you sorting
initially,
by action item?
Initially. But what we'll do is we have to add the date of the call, or at least the date of submission, depending on what you need. But date of call, and then you can sort by those dates.
Date of call, I think.
Okay. So just to show you what I meant by the relationship. So you can see here that I am the client, and then I'm going to go and make you the coach. For that one. And if I go and add a new contact, let's go. He gets around, this guy.
I was going to say, he's in more apps than any other contact.
Yeah. So I'll just say that.
It's actually Peter's cat, Kirsten.
Oh, got it. Well, my 1-year-old son's in our database for testing, so.
Does he know?
Yeah, my husband and my son are in there.
I do tend to use my daughters as well. So I'm just going to go back and find myself again. Everyone's turned on Netflix. So now we can go back, and I've got those 2 calls, and we can see, if I close this up, we can see on the first one, I'm the client, you're the coach, and I can then go in and say, well, actually on this one, Erwin's the coach. So that you can, you retain that relationship of, well, who was the call actually with on the particular date. And what you then also get, the other side of how these relationship works, is when I'm looking, and I don't have to scroll up anymore, but when I'm looking at Peter, I can see there are 2 calls. If I go and look at your record as the coach, then we'll see you've only got 1 call on your record at the moment, and we can see that you're the coach, I'm the client, and we'll see the same on Erwin, because the call itself becomes an entity that different people then have relationships to. Any questions on that?
So theoretically, my coach could go to their record and then see I have a call on April 23rd and pull it that way, or go to the member's record.
Yeah, the probably the better way to do that is we'll build here a safe search for the coach. So for the logged in coach, all the calls that are in the future.
Got it.
Because otherwise, I don't know how many calls a coach would do over a year, but
a lot.
Yeah, so they don't want to go to their record to go and find the calls that are in the future or this week. So we can build a query on that. So they just have a safe search that then says, well, okay, here you go. These are the calls that are coming up. And then from there, you can then select the next call, fill it in, pull the search up, next call, and just go through it that way.
Gotcha.
For that. So first thing I want to do is go and change that relationship. So I can go and change this member. And then we can go and look at some fields. So you say you want the date to be the date that the call is booked for, or just the date that the call, or it's the same thing, but where we get the information from, the date that the call is booked for, or the date that the call happened?
The date that the call is booked for.
Okay, so when the member fills in their details,
which should be days in advance because they're all on it, I'm sure.
Yes. They will already know what date they've booked a call for?
Correct, yeah. They don't get the form to fill out until they've booked their call. Okay,
and we can therefore ask them, what date is your call booked for?
We could, or we automate all our bookings through Schedule Once, so we could also just capture the date out of Schedule Once, or out of Infusionsoft, we store the date of their call. Might be easier than asking them just for one less question, if there's through Zapier or something, a way to push the data through.
Yeah, so that would just be however we'd have it as a URL parameter on the link to the form, so that it's pre-populated on the form, and then you just they fill in the other details. So I think probably for our time constraints and everything here, if we are going to connect a form up, we'll maybe just use a form where we pick the date and do that, so you can see how that flows and how that would function, and then we can just amend it with a hidden field and the right details later, because then of course their name and email address we won't ask for again, because that can come over with the URL as well.
Right. Yes, that would be ideal.
Okay, so if we perhaps go and just look at the structure of what I've built, and whether that is in the right groupings or whether you want to change any of it, and then look at what additional fields we want to add. These are all the fields that were on your list.
Mm-hmm.
We can split the goals and challenges. We can split into two to have 4 columns next to each other. If you don't want them to have to scroll down so far, it just depends on how you want to structure that.
I'm okay with goal and challenges. The only thing I'm thinking is I might move the top 3 things they want to discuss, which is like halfway down that list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think at the bottom of that list is like your ideal outcome or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those 2, I would possibly move into the 3rd column to the right.
Okay.
Just thinking that that's really what I want the coaches to emphasize, right? Like I want them to know, all this other stuff aside, these are the 3 things this person wants to hear about from me when they're on the call. And this is like what I'm hoping to get out of the calls. So,
and should we put that between call recording link and action items, because it's stuff that they would know before they fill in action items and call notes, or where would you like it in that column?
I would actually put it at the top of the column, and then just to be high maintenance, I would move call connection details and call recording link to the very bottom. So it'll be top 3 things, ideal outcome, action items, call notes, call connection, call recording.
Okay, so I'm going to try and keep track of that. So what we have is we can go and say, okay, so connection details and call recording, you want to move to the bottom?
Very bottom, yeah.
Yeah, so we can move those down to the very bottom. And then ideal outcome is at the top of that section.
Mm-hmm.
And top 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now what I just need to do to move those into the right position in the interface is we've got a subsection called call overview details, and I just go and change I've moved the 1 too far. There we go. Top 3 things out of goals and challenges into there. And basically, from a sort of technical standpoint, how this works is any of these fields that have the same subsection and the same section will appear together. I can have the same subsection split across multiple sections and they'll be out. So the section is the first hierarchy and then the subsection. So now that I've changed those, if we go and refresh, you should be able to see that that is done. So top 3, ideal outcome, action, call notes, call connection, call recording.
Mm-hmm.
So that's looking okay to you?
Yeah, it gives them less to scroll in the middle, and I think they focus on those 2 on the right first and then kind of go back to get their data.
Okay.
Not 100% sure, but that's what I would do.
Okay. And shall we put the date of the call above or below this first call section?
Yeah, let's put it above so it's the very first field.
So you can see.
And then ideally it would be sorted by that.
At the top here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if that impacts anything while you're in the back there.
So let's go in. And it needs to be called date and time, doesn't it?
Date and time of call. Yeah. But I think we can do it all in one field. We can grab the data all merged together.
So all I do is go there and we say, what do you want to call the field specifically?
Date and time of call is fine.
So I name the field it's going to be a date time field, so that we've got date and time in there. I'm going to say, yes, I do want it in the list header and I want it to be in the first position. And then I just need to go and see what the subsection is, which is introduction. And I move that in there as well. And that should be all I need to do. Just move it to the first position and save. There we go. So now date and time of call is up there. We can choose what the other fields are. Action items, call recording link, and first call doesn't seem particularly helpful at a first glance. So we can easily go in and change those when we go back there. But from the fields perspective, is there anything else that you want to move about?
No, I think that looks good. Yeah, and I don't know that we would search by anything besides date and time of call. As far as up top, but we can leave action items, and we could leave ideal outcome maybe.
Okay.
Or connect, maybe connection. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back. Let's do date and time, connection details, and then ideal outcome. What's that third one?
Connection details, ideal outcome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Gary's question, Peter. That's the right time to address it.
Yeah. Can that automate an email reminder to all parties prior to the date? Yes, Gary, it can. We can perhaps look at that. But yes, you can do that, and you can obviously, because we've got the two relationships of member and coach, you can send two different emails with different content, so that it speaks to the right person with the right language and the right information. For that, so that is all possible.
Sorry, while we're on that topic, could we theoretically send this entire thing we just built out, like, here's all your notes that you submitted, so they're at our fingertips?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah, you can any of these fields can be merged into
the email.
Yeah,
perfect.
And so you can do that. And so just quickly go back. So we want date and time. Did you say connection details and ideal outcome?
Yes.
In the header? Okay.
Yes, please.
So date and time is 1. First call, we don't want there anymore. Action items, I think I had up there as well. So, ideal outcome.
Just while you're doing that, I'll expand the answer to Gary a little bit more as well. So Gary, you asked if putting the date and timing can automate an email reminder to all parties. Yes, it can, as Peter said. The other great thing about using Macanta for this kind of automation is because Macanta knows about the relationship between humans and the data, you can actually automate emails only going to the client, for example, or just to the coach, depending on what your setup is. So you can get quite granular with and personal with the communication.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed the URL. Connection details and ideal outcome and the date.
Perfect.
Will be up there for that. So then when I book the call, do I know which coach I'm going to speak to?
Yeah, that we can pull all again from the schedule once parameters
Yeah.
URL, because we have booking pages per coach, and so when they book, I know what coach they are, what time it is, what day it is.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so there's
I really like automating things.
How does a member know which booking page to go to then, if there are different pages per coach?
We have a kind of like a host page, so they go to book their coaching calls, and we have all the embeds there, and so they can select which one they want. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're all in one spot.
Okay.
For the member.
Yeah. Okay, so then what we would want to do, I'm just thinking through the integration, because we would need the coach to be in here as a contact, so that we can pull their ID out and connect them automatically as with the member. So that's reasonably simple to do if you know how to do it.
As with most things.
Yeah. So from these details and the actual interface and what we've got on here, is there anything that you think we're missing at the moment before we look at the integration?
I don't think so, no, because we'd have the date, the coach. No, I think that's it.
Okay, so now just in the interest of time, we've got a couple of questions. Let me just deal with those quickly.
Yeah.
Can that automate email? Yes. And also, can you see all of the daily booked calls as an overview for management? Yes. Again, Gary, you would create that as a Macanta query. So we can look at doing that in a moment as well, so you can see. So again, what you would have is in here, you'll have a drop-down list that you could call upcoming calls or whatever, and then you've got permission levels for who can see that drop down, and when you see that, you can then see all the calls. If I was running a Google Calendar diary for agents to self-populate appointments, could this be linked in, or do you have another way that could be shared with external agents? So just if I'm wrong in what I think you're asking, Gary, just comment. What I think you want to do is, I'm an agent, I'm out on the road, someone's called me and I've booked in for 3 o'clock next Tuesday. They put it in their Google diary just as you would put something in a diary. What you can do at that point, and I do this, my default would be Zapier to do this rather than writing an integration for Google, but you would then just connect their diary to Zapier. Whenever a new appointment appears, then it's essentially all the other steps in what we're going to do for the integration here would be the same, because when they put it in their diary, it's the same as booking a call via Schedule Once or Calendly or Acuity, where you know who it is, when, what day, what time, what type of appointment, so you can then feed that information in. So yes, you can certainly, if people are using their own diaries, and you can then of course do it the other way around as well. When someone books a call in the system, it can be pushed to an agent's diary. The only thing you wouldn't have with this, which you would have with something like Calendly or Acuity or anything, is we won't know whether that slot is available in the agent's diary when someone comes to book it here. But if the information comes from the Google Calendar to Macanta, then yes, you can fully automate that. That was a very long answer.
Yes.
What I was going to say, Kirsten, if it's all right with you, rather than us trying to, without sharing details via a webinar, connect your Typeform and Zapier and everything into Macanta here, I'll just go into our landing page account, build a web form that will function as if we won't put all the fields in, but we'll put some of the fields in.
Sure.
so that it functions as if. We'll show how to build the Zap, and I'll just do that in our account, so that it pushes in and you can see what would happen when the form is filled in and how it works. And then, of course, outside of this webinar, we can then, of course, help you to actually get the actual form and the actual Zap and everything set up. But just because we didn't have time to make all those connections before we got on this, I'll just quickly build a dummy version of that while Pete, I don't know, entertains everyone while I quickly build the form.
Gives us some more knock-knock jokes or something.
Well, we hope not. But in the meantime, if there are any questions, Pete will answer those.
Yeah, you like putting people on the spot. No, I think it's instructive to see you working.
Okay.
Land Dinghy, if you've used landingpages.com or Unbounce or any of the other landing page tools, it's similar.
Yeah, and one thing to be very clear about, Macanta is completely web form, diary, whatever agnostic. We just have an open API. You use whatever you want and send the information across. It doesn't, as long as what you're using can send a webhook, then you can plug in what you need. And the same thing goes for as long as what you're using can receive a webhook, then we can send information to that as well. Go with that.
Oh, now there's a question. Helene wants to know whether she can connect it with Wix. If you're meaning about a form submission from Wix, then I don't know specifically. I've never used Wix. So.
I can.
Do you want me just to have a quick look at that?
Yeah, have a look. Whether they have Zapier. If they have Zapier, if they can submit forms, then yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah. So let me have a quick look, Helene, for you.
Yeah. And the reality is, if you if you have any, I mean, I can't see that you can't embed HTML somewhere in Wix, and if you can do that, you can build the form wherever you want, and then just put the code on your site. So there are options available.
Yeah. So Wix doesn't have a Zapier integration.
Okay.
Have a look at Wix forms.
So here we're going to have name. So I'm going to give these additional labels just because some of these will be hidden fields in the end.
Right.
But for now, we need to understand what they are. So member first name is all we really care about right now. And we can have coach first name. And we've already got the email. We're going to need, can I get date time? I wonder. In here, let's go for date. And all date. I'm going to keep doing that. Additional options. No, not for that. That's interesting to note that we don't get that. Date. So for the moment, we'll just go with date and not time, but the principle remains the same. And then let's just see, can I get rid of this? Email, we've got the coach's first name, and I'm actually going to change this to be the coach email.
Helene, I've just had a look on the Wix website, and I'd misspelt Wix with a double X inside Zapier. So there is a Zapier integration for Wix automations, and there's a lot of, it seems to be quite detailed documentation on the Wix help center about Wix forms and also Wix automation. So my confidence level is high that you'd be able to do in Wix what Peter is showing you here in Landingy.
Member email. Then, just because I doubt it can cope with 2, I'm going to go single line and call it.
And Scott, Macanta, as it is at the moment that you're seeing on the screen when Peter's working, it's optimized up to tablet, works really well on an iPad and similar size. It's not for iPhone. I'm being non-agnostic there. It's not for smartphone. Other smartphones are available, but what can I say? Watch this space.
Yeah. So that's fine. We've got the call date.
We've got plans in store, which we'll talk to you about in relation to our project, Scott.
Just, can you explain to me what the YTB fields are, Kirsten?
Yeah, it stands for a course we run called You the Brand.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of result of the course is you should have a hook, a niche, and a through line. And so that's what that stands for. Is
okay,
we want them to remind us of those 3 things because that's kind of their bread and butter, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine it's something that may evolve over time.
Yeah, it might switch, which is why we ask it every time and don't just stagnant hold it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll add those fields and then leave it at that for the moment. What was that? It's just multi-line. So if we go with those, okay, so those are fine there. So I've got the member's first name and the member's email, the date of the call. I've got our 3 fields, which in the final version for you will hold all the fields. Sure. And then we've got the coach email, and you will see when I go and build in Zapier why we need the coach email. The short reason why we need it is in order to connect the coach to a call, we need their ID, and I get that by making a call to Macanta with the email address. The reason I wouldn't build the Zap hard-coded with a contact ID is because then you need a Zap for every coach. And when you hire a new coach, you need to go and build another Zap. Whereas if you do it the way I'm going to do it now, you've got one Zap and you can go and hire 20 new coaches. It will still keep working and doing the right thing.
Build for scale.
Yeah, without going and needing to amend any of that. What we're going to do now is we're going to say to this form, when it's submitted, send it over to Zapier. And that comes in the form of the integration. And we want this one here. And you can, Pete, if you can remind me to slow down as and when I need to.
Okay. You work on autopilot in Zapier, don't you?
Yes. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to set up a webhook in Zapier to receive the information from the landing page from the web form. So we're going to catch the hook. So I've done that. I need to copy this URL. And this is how I'm saying to the form, when that form is submitted, please submit the details, send it over there. So I can go and save and close that. We've got a very nasty looking form on what will be a very nasty looking landing page, but that's just fine for now. So that's our form. That's really done. If I can go and I can actually go and change this to use an existing thank you page. In the next action, go to default thank you page. That will do. Save that. And then I can save. I'm sure I've already clicked save.
Yeah, it's happened to me a couple of times.
Oh, I know why. You know why? Because I haven't saved the thank you page.
Ah.
So it goes back and says, well, you don't have a thank you page, so you need to do something else. Thanks.
Terse and succinct.
And so main page, fine. And let's go and publish that. So I'll copy the link and open it here.
Nice, easy to remember landing page.
Yes. So what you need to do in this instance, when you come and set up a Zap for the first time, obviously here it's going to need to get information. So if you come here and you keep clicking test and nothing happens, it's because we've never submitted the form. So I'm going to go and say that this is Erwin who's doing this. Erwin at Codina.com, I believe it was. The call date, we'll only have a date, we'll say it's for next week. And details. And then the coach's email, so I'm going to make you the coach, Kirsten. So you are Kirsten at
Mindshare Summit.com.
Like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm now going to send this. Get the beautiful thank you page. And then I can go and say test and review. So this is now, Zapier will now go and have a look for that information. Now, unfortunately, we just have to wait a little bit for it to come across. There we go. So now we can see I've got the email, the name, the date, our field details, the other email address. The reason I, in that form, created this email address as a text field and not an email field is because I'm not convinced that a web form with 2 email fields works. because for most of the time you're submitting a form because of the person whose email it is, and then things just fall apart. And we can see here, it tells us that it's a coach call form. That's what the landing page was called. So now we know that when someone fills in that form, information is coming into Zapier. So now we need to go and tell Zapier what to do with that information. So I can say done. So there are steps that we need to follow here. The first is we want to create the call in Macanta, and then and at the same time we want to connect the member to that call, and then after that we'll go and connect Kirsten as the coach to that same call that we've just created. So ask questions as I go. I appreciate some of you may never have seen any of this, but so what we're going to do, we're going to send a webhook to Macanta. Go for that one first. First thing we're going to do is we are going to, get member ID. So webhook, we are going to post a hook, and we'll continue. Now I know the URL for this. So it's, in case you're wondering, it's whatever your app ID is there. So you replace that for your own, but .com, and then rest /v1/contact. What we want there. Always send the payload to Macanta as JSON. And now we add our fields. What am I going to send? I have to send first name. And I have to send email as a minimum. And then I have to send the API key. And we'll reveal your API key, Kirsten, but we'll change it after the webinar. So just under admin, you've got your security section. You can go and copy that there. So we're going to send that. Now, obviously, for first name and email, it needs to be the first name and email of whoever has just submitted the form. So what Zapier allows you to do is to go and find it. So you can see it shows it for me here, and I can use that as merged placeholders. And I go for the email as well. So what I'm doing here with this post is simply getting Erwin's contact ID, because I need that in order to connect him to a call. So I can now go and say continue. And then if I've done everything right, it'll come back as green. And we can see here contact ID 6. Now the reason I've done that is now available for me to use in a future step. So we've done that, and no, I'm not that done. There we go, only that done. I'm pretty sure I renamed that. Give me a second. Rename, get member ID. Okay, so I'm done with that one. I want another step. Now I realize I've left a field out on the form, so I'm going to hard code it here because I need the coach's first name as well, because you need first name and email in order to get an ID. So I'm just going to hard code because I know that it's Kirsten. So continue, and it's the same. Nope.
You know what I'm going to say, don't you?
Hmm?
You know what I'm going to say, don't you?
No.
Get a clipboard manager.
Oh, I've got one. It just drives me mad. Contact. So we've got that again. Jason. First name.
So while you're doing that, Eugene said, would you hard code that name normally? No, Peter's only hard coding it for this call to Macanta because he's forgot to ask for the coach's first name on the form that we submitted. So rather than going back to landing, adding the field, submitting the form again and going through it, we're just putting in the first name.
Yeah. So just to point this out, you now see when I come in here, I've got 2 steps to choose values from. So I can choose these values or I can choose these values. I know that I want the ones from the first step, and it's Kirsten's email address there. So we've got that, and continue. Test. And that's all good. Your contact ID 1. And then we say we do another one. And whilst this looks like hard work and repetitive, you only do this once, and then you've got it in place for every call that is booked.
It's like all automation, Kirsten, isn't it? You got to think about it, and you've got to take the time to build it, and that it's it's that upfront work which just saves time,
hours.
Yeah,
hours on the backside.
Not just time either. It's the peace of mind that it's always going to be done the right way, the right time,
and immediately. So when they are a little more tardy in getting us their notes,
yeah,
they get to the coach right away instead of relying on a team member to be sitting at their desk to get that. reformatted and out the door.
This URL is slightly different. Here we're adding, because what we're going to add now, a data object of a coaching call. So we use the add function, and then the next step we're going to use edit, because we're actually just connecting a relationship to that particular item. So again, we're going to go as Jason.
So just while you're going through that, I want to clarify what we've done so far. So we've
Yep.
submitted a form from Landingy or Typeform or Gravity Form or whatever your form processor is of choice. And that's come into Zapier. And what we've done so far is we've made a call to Macanta to get the ID of the member that submitted the form. And we've made a call to Macanta to get the ID of the coach whose details were, they were pre-populated in the form. And now we're going to use all of that information to create the data of the coaching call data object inside Macanta.
Correct. So here we need contact ID, connected group. I'll explain these in a moment. Connected relationship, API key, and then we've got our field values that we had. So they just go in as they are on the interface. So I think we had these three. Okay, so here we are creating the call. So we're going to create it using the member. So we go and find the member's ID, which is there. Connected group, that's your data object. And in this instance, it's just what it is says on this tab. So coaching calls. And this you would hard code because it's always going to be for coaching calls. The connected relationship, in this instance, we've said it's the member. API key might still be, no, of course it's not. I'll tell you why it annoys me, Pete. Can you see? I'm trying to get to it, but Chrome wants me to do that. Go back, and then I can have it.
Yeah, that's because you're not using the tool that I told you to use.
I know. What am I like? So then we go back to where we filled in the web form to go and get, and we've got the hook details. We've got the niche details, and we've got the through line details there. So now we are going to say continue. Let me just check that. ID, group, relationship, API key, and our three fields. That should be all we need. I'll go and say continue. And test. We've got green, which is always good. So that was for Erwin, I believe. And if I go and find Erwin, what am I doing? There he is. Now what we have here is there's a new call for Erwin. I reckon it's this one. Ah, you know what field I left out? Yes, we've got hook details, niche details, through line. I left out the date, so I'll go and amend that. And that is called date and time of call, but we know we've only got a date field, but we'll force it in for the moment. So now I can go back to the hook and I can get that date. Okay, send, and I can retest that. We're still green. Go and see that's all done. Yeah, we've got another one. Owen's the member. We've got those details. And have I got the wrong one? I reckon it's, yeah, because that's a date time field, it won't do it. And it's not going to force it in. But you get the idea of what we're doing. I'll just have to live without a date for the moment, unfortunately. So we've there, and just to be clear, the reason we don't have a date time in Zapier is nothing to do with Zapier. It's because the landing page tool we use to build the form doesn't have a date time field option. It's only got date. And so that's something to be mindful of. But obviously, if when we're connecting this to your diary booking platform, you'll have a date and a time. So that will be fine. So that's that one done. Now, all that remains to do is to go and connect the coach
Jean said
to...
you missed the D in date time field.
Pardon?
Jean said you've missed the D in date time field.
Well, can I just not spell? Is that it? There we go. Imagine what would happen if I was left on my own. We're back to green.
You did it on purpose to make sure that he's awake. Yeah.
Just to make sure he's paying attention. Yeah, he logs in and then he leaves. Mind you, there's a lot of the stuff that we showed that's in the interface this week that wasn't there last week is there because he pays attention. So there you can see our date has been filled in. I just need to learn how to spell. So that's there. So now the final step in setting up our Zap is setting up connecting the coach to it. So it's essentially very much the same thing. And what we'll have is we're going to post a hook again, just to a slightly different URL with one additional field. So
You need the XG, you need the number on there as well.
yeah, yeah.
And everything that you've seen Peter do on this call, on this webinar with webhooks, in the fullness of time, and we hope they won't be too long, there will be a native Zapier, is it app or integration or?
Integration.
A native Zapier integration for Macanta. So where he's been going and selecting webhook for the action and the trigger, you'll be able to select Macanta CRM
Add or update.
and you'll be able to select, you know, which of the triggers and actions that you want to do. So you won't need to remember, you know, these /rest/v1 and all the kind of API keys, because that'll be done by the authentication between Zapier and Macanta.
Okay. And then what we have is we've got contact ID, relationship, CD, GUID. Never forget that one. And so, oh, being good to me. I can go in and put in the API key. Contact ID, this time we want to get the coach's ID. So we go and get that. The group remains the same. And the relationship is now coach. And then the CDGUID is because obviously, so this contact, Erwin, now has 4 calls on his record. We need to know which one to actually update. Which one is it that we want to connect? And you see there's this really human-friendly ID number under here. That's the CDGU ID. So when we create it in the previous step, you can see if I go by create call, it's available as one of the fields that I can then use, and it's called here, starts with item underscore. So I can go, so that's how I tell it which item to go and update with that relationship, and it's that contact ID. And let me just do this, rename. Continue, test, green.
The magic's kind of obscured a little bit when you're just doing it step by step. It's really cool when you've kind of built it, and then presumably you'll go and fill the form in.
Fill the form in again, yeah.
Again, just to test it in one go.
But now we can see we've got these details here. The call's been created. Erwin's the member, Kirsten's the coach, and that's then all done. And this time, really done. And this is calls, and I can turn that on. And then we'll go and, it's a bit like, I think it was in the West Wing TV program where it said there's 2 things you don't want to see made, sausages and laws. And it's a bit like that. It's no fun if you're involved in what happens in the background. But
yeah. So you're putting the 3rd thing in there, is that as a Zapier Zap?
Yes. I'll have a word with Aaron Sorkin and see if they can re-record that episode just for that. So this time I'm going to change it that I am the member. And I'll change the date to the 30th. I'll leave the other bits the same.
No, change them because the placeholder text is the same as that, so it doesn't look. Oh.
No, it doesn't say details.
All right. Okay, I'll let you off. Doesn't look like there's anything changed.
Yeah, so it'll have details on the end. But in any case, if I go and find myself, you can also, I'll do this. There's a history for the tasks in Zapier so that you know when it's run, so you don't pull your hair out thinking, why isn't it there? He says. So we can tell that Landini hasn't sent it yet. So in the meantime, I'll just go and find myself. There we go. We can see that it's run. You can also go and see what it's actually done. It's quite handy that it gives you all this information. But if we then go here, we've got me, go there, and there's my call. Kirsten's my coach. I'm the member, and it, as if by magic, that's there.
Awesome.
So whilst this is good, we love teaching, I love showing people this stuff, I really enjoy doing it. The key here is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think it is. Actually, I have a mole on as well. One of my team members joined. Gotta have your moles, right? And so I think, yeah, it's the Macanta interface makes it easy to find this data by having it all in that relationship under coaching call. So I think that makes it easy for letting people in. And then also, just because it is outside of our billing software, at least how we're implementing this, it makes me more comfortable to let my coaches in, because they're not necessarily getting data on members that they shouldn't have, like credit card numbers or different things of that nature.
And they've only got
because
access
of the way that we're using Macanta, you know.
I was going to say, they've also got, just in terms of that, limitation and restriction, is you make sure that when the coaches log in, they're only accessing the contacts that they have a relationship with.
Right. Also true.
Yeah.
So I think this does solve a lot of our issues as far as getting automation in. Being able to email the coach and the member their notes ahead of time. I also foresee implementing some automation. So at the end of the call, after they fill in those action items and call notes, the coach says it's done, hit save, whatever. And then that fires another, hey, so great talking to you today. Here's what we talked about, blah, 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 blah. And then that puts that field in. So I think, I personally am all about automation and less man hours to implement these things without compromising on the value that we're providing or the information that our coaches need in order to implement the calls, or our members need on the backside to be able to implement what they were taught or discussed. So
from what you said there about the automation posted, I don't think we'll go into building it now, but you can set that up. So where you've got two ways we can do that for you. You can either have a field in here that's the status of the call, that's booked, completed, missed if for some reason the member doesn't show up, anything like that. So you can have that. Alternatively, you can actually make it, you can have the stick and the carrot at the same time, because you want to make sure that these, especially these fields, the first 4 on the right hand side, are completed, because that's what you want to send after the call, perhaps to the member, the notes and things like that. So you can set the automation that the automation will send when those 4 fields are not blank.
Perfect.
And you can just, and therefore it's easy to train your team, because it's just, well, those 4 fields are required. If you don't fill them in, the automation's not going to send. And it just means it's you, because the interface forces people to complete those 4 pieces of information. You then know that those notes are always complete, and what you send on. So, but we can discuss that and see how you want to structure that and what you want to do there.
Yeah, but I mean, for now, this is great, super helpful, and I think gets us to the point where I can definitely just show it to the coaches too and say, look at this, will this work? Which they're gonna say yes, but get their buy-in.
No,
that's good.
We appreciate your help in helping us do another case study, because believe me, they're a lot more interesting than me just sitting here with Peter watching him make stuff up. It's just more it's more engaging, it's more real, obviously, that when we're using Macanta to build out a system for a real business. So I appreciate your time and your input and your help, and we'll have another call with you after this, just to make sure everything's squared away. See if you need any more help to get it to the stage where you can take it to the rest of your team.
And just before we go, anyone else have any questions? Speak now.
Or forever hold your peace.
No.
Thanks, Lean.
Look like it. So that's all cool.
Great. So thanks again, everyone, for being with us. Good to see some new names and some old familiar ones there as well. We're here, same time, same place next week. Do we know who we've got, or is that a...
Next week?
Yeah.
We know, but I'll have to go and check.
Okay.
The system knows. I don't know until
yeah,
I'll know on Monday morning.
We divorce all responsibility for memory of things that need to happen to Macanta.
Eugene just asked, what time does this recording usually go live? Usually it goes live before lunchtime on a Thursday, but I am off tomorrow.